Hey guys, welcome back. Thankfully here in Everett, Washington, all the smoke from all the fires up north have cleared out. It's actually really clear and it's a gorgeous day. I can finally see the sun out here. So with that, I'm out here filming. Recently, Fox Airsoft sent over, I suppose, a couple of mystery boxes, one being one of the $200 mystery boxes. As you saw in the previous video, inside of that was a Umarex MP5 SD6. Now, it's one of my favorite guns ever, the MP5 SD6. It is really disappointing that this is the only MP5 SD on the market. No other models, just this one, and it happens to be a plastic kind of Sportline-esque MP5. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a pretty price point gun. It's under $200. And it shoots pretty well considering. I do like how snappy the trigger response is, the rate of fire isn't that bad, and the accuracy and range I really can't complain about for a stock gun. So let's check this thing out and kind of go over it. But first we're going to see what it comes with. Now, the gun doesn't come with much. It's a pretty bare bones package. It doesn't come with a battery or charger or anything, so you guys got to have those on hand yourself. Generally, if you're an experienced player, you probably have those like crazy sitting around. If you're a new player, go pick up maybe a 9.6 volt nickel metal hydride battery or 7.4 LiPo. Just make sure you use the right charger, of course. Comes with a cleaning rod appropriate for the barrel length, 2 high capacity magazines, which is kind of nice. I remember when I first got my very first airsoft gun, it happened to be an ICS MP5, came with 1 high cap, and I wasn't experienced. I went out on the field and I just had my 1 high cap. I couldn't get a single stupid kill with only 200 rounds. So having a little extra ammo right on hand when you get the gun, if you're a new player, fantastic. If you're someone like myself who's been playing a while, I've got over a dozen MP5 mags sitting around. This just helps add to my collection. Told you that was quick. Wasn't really a whole lot to talk about. So we're on to the airsoft gun. Let's start with the stock and move our way forward. 4-position retractable stock. I do like these a lot. It's kind of got a rubberized texture on the back to help grip to your shoulder pretty well. I like it. It works well. It's actually pretty solid. Some other MP5s I've noticed, some of the older ones that unfortunately are not on the market anymore, were a bit more wobbly. This one's definitely a bit more solid, so I can really appreciate that. It is 4-position. The inserted position, I consider one. You hit the little tab here, and it is slightly spring-loaded. There's a little knob under here with a spring, and that will kind of help project the stock out a bit. Position 2, 3, and 4 all the way out. You do have a couple of sling loops here. I'd consider this a sling loop on the back here. You're probably not going to need some kind of maybe small adapter or something, or some paracord to tie in there. I can't think of a lot of sling connectors that'll actually fit that. But I'd probably connect it to this one here. It is metal, but it does actually tie into a plastic cap here, so be aware of that if you're going to put a sling on here. I actually have had these fall out before, so maybe consider not putting a sling on this gun, especially on this point being a kind of a plastic back to this. So just something to keep in mind. Moving up a little bit, our rear sight here is 4 apertures. They kind of grow in size from small to large. Selector on this guy is safe, semi, and full auto, just like most MP5s. The real one, of course, generally has a select fire of burst as well. There's only one Airsoft MP5, unfortunately, that has that, and those are on the market too, but they're a bit higher price point. Moving up the gun a little bit, the magazine release, there are 2 of them. If you have a sufficiently long index finger, you can push the one on the side here. I really have to take my hand off the grip to do it. It's pretty tough, so I tend to use the second one, the flapper paddle on the bottom. And you just pop your magazine in and out. Pretty simple. Flipping the gun around, we do have our hop-up adjustment dial here. It's just a little tab on the side. It's just like the old Marui design. So forward is less hop-up and back is more hop-up. Pulling the charging handle on this gun, please don't do the H&K slap. It is a plastic tube inside of a plastic tube. Even though it's a metal handle, it will break over time, I guarantee it. I know it's fun to do the HK slap, but you're going to break your gun if you do it. It really is just a cosmetic feature. It really doesn't do anything. It does not pull the fake bolt back. This is part of the body, and it is one piece. The front sight on this guy is just a little post here inside of a circle. I love the concentric circles on the MP5 as well as other HK guns. I think they're some of the best sights out there, period. I rarely put optics on my MP5s, and I go iron sights. I really like using them quite a bit. You also have a front sling loop just to the left of the front sight up here as well. The battery compartment is probably a little difficult to get some batteries into. It's rather small, it's in the handguard here. You have to take out the 2 pins on either side here. It's not terribly difficult to get to, but some batteries took a little bit of finesse to get in there. The 9.6 volt that came with the mystery box this gun came in is pretty much the maximum size you can fit into the battery compartment. It'll fit that just fine. Takes a little bit of finagling to get it in there. I would recommend probably a 7.4 LiPo, as they are smaller and they'll probably fit just as well, if not much more easily, into the handguard. Finally, the front end of this does have a mock suppressor. It is quick and easy to detach, just comes right off here. If you're wanting to get rid of that orange tip, sorry, you've got a second one under here. It does actually have some small ports inside of it as the BB goes through, so I kind of think it dampens the sound a little bit. I can't really say how much, but keep in mind there's this big orange cap on the front. It's very obvious and very noticeable, so just keep that in mind too. Now that we've gone over the externals of the gun, let's go ahead and put this on the tech table and check out what the internals are made of. Alright, we've got the Umarex MP5 SD6 open on my tech table here, and you can tell right away that this is definitely OEM'd by Cyma, which is not a bad thing. I actually really like them as a company, and they make fantastic MP5s. We're going to start with the hop-up, then go to the motor, then open up the gearbox. The way this hop-up works is pretty standard, and it looks identical to the Tokimaru design from a long time ago. So when you move that lever on the side of the gun, it kind of moves back and forth. It interfaces with a little peg here, and moves your hop-up arm here, so that'll push your nub up and down. Pretty simple design, and I find it works pretty well. It does have a brass inner barrel, which is pretty typical of most airsoft guns nowadays, and it does have pretty good crowning on the end as well. The motor is also pretty standard as well. It feels like it has a hair more torque than most. I've felt some motors that just are slugs and they don't move at all, but this one actually has a little more zest to its spin. It also has a D-type pinion on it as well. With the gearbox open, we can look and see what the internals are made of here. So you can see the bushings are actually a combination of bearings and bushings. They're all 7mm, but the bearings are on the bevel gear here, and then there are sets of bushings on both the sector and spur gear. Oh, you gotta love that toothpaste blue grease. It's usually green, but they went with blue this time. Next up is our air compression system. So we got our tappet plate, which if you'll see is a little bit different here. It's got some cutouts in the front which actually match little cutouts in the gearbox. So you'll have to keep that in mind. If you have to upgrade or replace your tappet, you might have to get a particular one or shave down the portion of the new tappet plate. Nozzle's pretty standard, one piece plastic, no O-ring in there. Piston is their all-metal tooth rack with their second to last tooth removed there, so that's a really nice touch. Definitely a good upgrade there. I've always liked Cyma pistons myself, and their metal tooth ones are excellent. Piston head ported. Cylinder is roughly a Type 2 Combat M4 length that also works well for the MP5. Cylinder head is your standard one O-ring with dampener on the front. Air seal is pretty typical, I feel like. It definitely does okay, but it definitely could be beefed up as well. Spring in here is probably an M100 power, give or take, maybe a little bit more powerful, probably an M110 actually. Spring guide is one piece plastic, has a metal washer on the bottom. From earlier, we can also see where the tappet plate fits in there, and it is a little bit thicker right here on the bottom, so that can definitely help with durability. Gears are your pretty standard steel cut gears. Your sector interface here is a little bit larger than normal, so that can help with feeding a bit. In general, your internals are pretty standard and typical of your price point airsoft gun in that kind of mid-$100 range. There are definitely some upgrades. You've got your metal tooth piston, which I really appreciate. That saves you a little bit of money there. You've got your slightly beefed up gearbox shell on the front end that requires that special tappet plate. So definitely some pluses there. And seeing the bushing bearing mix between the gears and everything is actually pretty interesting. I've not seen that in a Cyma OEM'd internal gun before. So that's kind of a cool, interesting thing they do there. So overall, what do I think of the Umarex MP5 SD6? I really like it. It's definitely kind of a beginner geared sort of gun, being in that $150 to $160 kind of price point. Fox Airsoft, I believe, has it for $160 right now, so if you want, you can go check it out on their website. A few things I do want to touch on. It's an all plastic gun. It is pretty lightweight. I rather like that aspect about it. Some of the heavier full metal MP5s I have are just that. They're really heavy. Last time I went out to one of the local fields that took an MP5, it was a long 2-3 hour game. Not a lot happened, so I ended up carrying around that full metal MP5 for a while. If I had had this, I wouldn't have been half as tired. Just carrying around a full metal heavy gun that weighs 8 pounds, it gets to you after a while. So something that weighs about half the weight of that, it really can make the difference over time. So, plastic body definitely has pros and cons. I like the lower weight, durability. It's got some creaks to it, but overall it's really, really solid actually for a plastic body like this. Now, I've heard some people say that it's got kind of a cheaper feel, that the externals are kind of subpar of the price point you're paying. I don't fully agree with that. Definitely it's a plastic gun. It is kind of a beginner's affordable gun, and it's in the price bracket for that and performs about the way it should. If I were a beginner airsofter, I'd be pretty happy with my purchase. I remember paying, I think it was like $230, $240 for my first ICS MP5. It was about $100 more than this, given this is a plastic body and it had a metal one at the time. But this thing honestly performs better than that thing did way back when. So for the performance and the value you're getting in something like this, I like it. And all these small upgrades you get a slightly more reinforced gearbox with that tappet plate you noticed. You get a full metal tooth rack on your piston. I like that. I think that's a big thing right there. So definitely some small upgrades right there. For the price you're paying, I think it's a solid gun. Definitely great for beginners, people wanting a spare gun to give like a friend or someone to get into airsoft, or just having a loaner gun on your field. I think it fits the budget and it works out well for what it is. You can check this out on foxairsoft.com, and I'll put a link in the description down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Prodigy from Kilo 23. Stay tuned for more airsoft reviews very soon.